Yesterday, I made a follow-up video to a video I made the day before about the shooting of Keith Scott. Now, in that video, I talked about what I thought happened, but unfortunately, I made that video before the police released the video of the shooting. Now, a lot of people have asked me, since the police have now released that video, do I stand by what's in my first and second video? And yes, I do stand by it. I think the video the police released actually confirms pretty much every opinion I had in both videos. In those videos, I said I thought he probably did have a gun and that he probably was a threat to police at the time they shot him, but I thought the police probably caused a lot of that issue. And I also said that I don't think those pictures that the police released of a gun on the ground were actually a gun. I thought they were a glove. Now, a lot of people that analyzed that video took a different opinion than mine of whether that was a gun or not. In fact, one person, I think his name's Deputy Matt, said, well, that's obviously a gun. The guy in the red steps back, takes a defensive posture over it, and guards it while they're actually securing the scene. Well, if you look at the dash cam footage, that doesn't seem to be the case at all. In fact, the only reason the guy in red is standing where he is because when he goes into the body, the uniformed officer says, step back, step back, step back, and he steps back like 2 or 3 steps and plants himself. He never even looks at the ground once to see what he's standing over. In fact, I don't think there's anything he's standing over at that point because then the officer starts asking for gloves. He starts pulling gloves out of his pockets, out of his vest, dropping some of them and handing some of them off to the other officers and picking some up and dropping another one. That was a glove on the ground. That right there points to me that that is a glove, which explains why a few seconds later in the video, he just kicks it behind him casually and it kind of flattens out under his foot when he does. That doesn't look like a gun to me. It looks like a glove, and this video supports it being a glove. But like I said in the video, I think Keith Scott did have a gun. I don't think there's any doubt he had a gun, and I think he had it in his hand when he got out of the car. Therefore, I think the police were justified in shooting him when he wouldn't drop that gun, because he was a clear threat to them at that point. But I also think this is a perfect example of this militarized attitude that I have such a problem with in the police departments nowadays. They think it's their job to identify a threat and neutralize a threat. They identified him as a threat and then they were going to neutralize that threat. That is not the job of the police. The police's job is to maintain the peace and to enforce the laws. If they didn't believe he was actively breaking a law or he was an active threat to someone, they had no reason to create this situation. And you know, when you read the arrest summary and the incident summary that the police released, it even more supports the fact that they created the situation. Because they say they arrived, they saw him rolling a cigarette. They assumed it was marijuana. His windows were up, he wasn't smoking anything. There's no way they knew that was marijuana. They just assumed because he's rolling a cigarette. I know lots of people that roll tobacco, so that's just an assumption. After they went to serve their warrant to someone, which they were unable to serve because they couldn't find the guy, they came back and decided, well, now we'll deal with this guy. So they approached his car. And they say when they approached his car, they saw that he had a gun in his hand. They didn't say he flashed it or waved it around or brandished it. They said they saw he had a gun in his hand. And I don't know about you, but if I was disabled, he is a physically disabled person, and I was sitting in my car in a parking lot waiting for my son to get home on the school bus, and 2 big burly guys that I could probably see had guns came up to my car and started looking in the windows, I might put my gun in my hand just to be safe too. Then they decided, after they identified he had a gun, to leave the scene, get vests, come back in force, and escalate the situation. Instead of de-escalating it by just stepping back a little bit to a safe distance or taking cover and talking to him like they could have at first, identifying themselves as police, etc., they decided to make a big scene out of it. They decided to make it a big militarized scene. And up until that point, the point where he got out of the car, I think it was wholly on the police. But once he gets out of that car with a gun in his hand and then refuses orders to drop it, then he takes responsibility for what happens after that. And in this case, he got shot. That is why it's so important to comply with police officers, and he didn't do that. Whether he created the situation or not, at that point, he was an active threat to officers performing their duties, whether they should have been performing those duties or not. So like I say, up to that point, it was all on the police, but once he became a threat, that changed the situation completely. So I understand that they had to shoot him at that point. I don't think they had to get to that point, so I don't think they're shooting him as criminal. I think they're shooting him was just in those circumstances, but I think they were negligent in their duties in creating that circumstance. But that's different than being criminal and being a killer. But you know, none of that is really the reason I wanted to make this video. I wanted to make this video to address 2 huge injustices. The first of which is to address the non-support this guy is getting from the gun community. And not just a lack of support, but condemnation. He's automatically just another dead thug to a lot of people. And to those people who actually said that in my first 2 videos, you're gone, you're banned from my channel. I don't want racists on my channel, so fuck off. Don't even try to comment again, you're banned. A lot of these people are the same people that went out of their way to defend Lavoy Finicum, a guy who was in the act of an illegal occupation of government lands, who was running a police roadblock at the time, who had threatened multiple times to shoot police officers, who had been convicted of child abuse and had children removed from his home. At that point, the police shot him as he was reaching for his gun. People defended him out the butt. They're like, oh, it's not his fault, it's the police's fault, and blah, blah, blah. He's just a good Christian man. I think what you're going to see was just a good Christian white man. But people who defended him but didn't give Keith Scott no benefit of the doubt, I can't stand people like that, so you're gone from my channel. And if anyone out there's got a problem with that, well, speak up. But if you say something racist, I'm going to ban you too. But you know, that's not even the main injustice. The main injustice I want to talk about are these people that were saying things in my video comments like, oh, this is just another gangbanger flashing a Glock, or another hood rat with a high point, things like that. Or people saying, just another loser with a Kel-Tec who got shot by police. That is not the case at all. He did not have a Glock. He did not have a high point. He did not have a Kel-Tec. He had a Colt. So if you people don't want to give him respect for anything else, you don't want to give him the benefit of the doubt about anything, at the very least, you will respect the fact that he had too much class to buy a Glock or a High Point or a Kel-Tec. He bought a Colt, and for that, you'll show him some respect.